Capital Improvement Projects Annual Report for Fiscal Year 2013.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm pleased to be here today to give you a snapshot of the city's capital program, which pretty much involves all city funds and city departments. As a snapshot, not all the capital work is described. However, it is intended to give you a good idea of the scale and scope of the work necessary to maintain and improve the city's significant infrastructure. First, I'll summarize capital work in the last 2 quarters. So the third quarter of the fiscal year, 7 projects had notices of completion filed. Their value or total project cost was over $56 million. See on the top is the Santa Barbara Airport Terminal, which is much of this sum. In the fourth quarter, as in Attachment 1 of the Council General Report, 9 projects had notices of completion, and their total value cost was over $14 million. Wide variety of work. Many of these I'll be focusing on. Here's a map. It shows the location of the 16 completed projects in the last 2 quarters of the fiscal year. As you can see, there's a lot of maintenance and improvement all around town. These projects focus on public works contracts or public works improvements. Also, the departments and the individual funds, waterfront, et cetera, do a significant amount of maintenance and repair work also. So here is some pavement prep. In fact, we have a feature video at the end of presentation today, which goes and has a description of the pavement maintenance work. So here, as I walk through some of the completed projects, this is a picture of Alameda Pardo Serra APS. And the project work includes first the pavement prep or preparation for our annual slurry seal contract. We also did some work while we're at it with facilities division, waterfront, some parking lots, et cetera, while we're mobilized. This zone focused on the Riviera area. And then after the preparation is done, maybe some dig outs of potholes, et cetera, then we have a pavement sealing process, the slurry seal, which many of you are familiar with. Now, this was a very interesting project, and I'm not sure if you can see it too much, but there was a significant deflection in the sewer that passes over Rattlesnake Creek near Schofield Park. The problem is that you can see a little bit through the brush a concrete foundation of a pipe support had been hit over the years by large rocks that tumbled down the creek and had fractured that foundation, and came to our attention, and we had the repair done under emergency conditions and was able to complete the work. The work was successfully accomplished under emergency permit by the Army Corps of Engineers with oversight from the California Fish and Game, who expressed to us that they were very happy with our attention to maintaining this sensitive creek habitat. Here is another project, a community improvement, and this is about 1,100 lineal feet of sidewalk along La Colina between Pasadas Lane and Lee Drive. The installation of new street trees, which you can see set aside over here. One of the reasons this area does not have a sidewalk because there's some steep slopes within the public right-of-way coming from the private property. So we had not only just the sidewalk, but also street trees. And this area is near the local high school and the Sand Summit Clinic, so this was a high-priority sidewalk infill for us. Here is some of the somewhat routine work that we do, which is to create new access ramps. This project here shown at the corner of Carrillo and Chapala was a very high priority for our Access and Advisory Committee. And we develop our list of access ramps by working with the Access Advisory Committee, and we have developed a matrix in cooperation with them where we look at, what locations are curb curbs that do not have ramps are near schools, shopping, medical facilities, or bus facilities. And this pretty much was big on that one. So now here we go into...
Can you go back?
Yes.
We're looking, I'm trying to figure
This
out
is
which
the
way we're
old
looking.
Greyhound.
Oh, the Greyhound, okay,
And
thank
so
you.
we're looking down Carrillo, and this is Chapala. And
Let's
so
say,
this
'cause, yeah,
going up,
Carrillo-
there is the bus station.
Right, so it had a lot more than just so, if you're looking at the picture, it just looks like you're cutting the curb for $249,000, and that's not what, there was more to it than that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There were
42
eight ramps that we created. This one was the most expensive one, and in particular, what made it very expensive was this drop inlet. And so it was very expensive to relocate the drop inlet. There's also some materials that we had found in a prior attempt to construct
Can you
this.
define what a drop inlet is?
Oh, where the water drops in
Thank
to
you.
a storm drain inlet. Thank you.
You had to realign a storm drain.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
So as you go through town, many of these access ramps are becoming, increasingly expensive because of just, they're the last ones. The easy ones were already built. Speaking about difficult, here's a picture of one of the city's more hidden key pieces of infrastructure, namely the El Estero Water Treatment Plant headworks, which provides for the screening of the city's sewage as it flows into the plant. As such, precise construction staging was very important, and it's essentially no room for error. What you're seeing on the left is the old system that was about 25 years old, where the debris is collected in some screens below the grate, deep under the ground, and then they're augured up into an open area where city staff would then several times a day collect that and pull it off and cart it away. What we have here is a complete system where and actually a more effective system, which it cleans the debris out of the sewage before it goes into the treatment process more effectively, and just carries it up, compresses it, and moves it away. So there's much less staff, less exposure of city employees to the sewerage, and it's just much more effective and efficient means. So we had completed 21 construction projects, public works contracts, and engineering, the value of those is $41 million. So here we're going into what is under construction right now, and this is a very interesting project that we've been talking about for the last 20 years I've been here as far as net, and that is providing fish passage up what we affectionately call the old Caltrans channel, which is the trapezoidal concrete flow control channel next to the freeway. And this is a Creeks Division grant-funded project, which provides means for the fish to travel through an old concrete channel portion of Mission Creek, which has been considered many years a block to the steelhead trout, a local endangered species, from passing from Lower Mission Creek to the headwaters of Mission Creek. The work started in May and is proceeding quickly. Schock Construction Company is expected to complete the 4,000-foot-long channel by mid-October. Here's another project at the El Estero treatment plant. And once influent sewage passes through the headworks, which we saw a few minutes ago, it is pumped to the top of the treatment facility. And construction on this began last October. There are 4 pumps. One is used for low flow. A second one is added for the average flow, a third for the peak flow, and we have a 4th one as a standby. Testing of the pumps is currently ongoing, and we expect this work to be completed next February. There's some pretty big equipment that's kind of hidden away to make everything work within the city. Here is the Ortega groundwater treatment plant, and this is a facility that has been out of use for many years and is being brought back into use. This project is moving into its startup phase. And what you see here is a manifold of from the several wells that feed into the facility, which is near, it's on Ortega, right near Garden Street. And right now, automatic controls are being implemented, and construction is scheduled to be completed in August. Here, what you're looking at here on the left is 2 tanks that are part of the treatment process, and here is a horizontal steel tank that is another element of the process. The groundwater produced here will help meet peak summer demands and supplement depleted water, surface water supplies during droughts. It can also serve as an emergency source in the event of a catastrophic interruption of the supplies from either the San Ynez River or State Water Project. Additionally, it can be used to assist in the city in complying with stricter drinking water regulations that have recently took effect.
We have a question, Mr. White?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Kelly, for example, the well at the high school, does that connect down to the treatment facility?
The wells that feed into this are the well at the junior high school, Ortega Park. Also the one right near the Parks facility.
Right.
City Hall well, which is out here in the parking lot, and Veracruz.
Okay. So then the high school well, and then the ones further up in McKenzie well and such like. Do you have a sense of how is that water treated?
That
Would I just be asking water
is not
staff those
treated.
questions? It's just not treated. It's used untreated.
Well,
I mean, it gets chlorination or something right on site.
yes. The quality of the water here in the lower part of the basin is different than the water quality at the higher level of the basin. And that's not uncommon. We have a very good well at McKenzie, San Roque, and at the high school. And those are, the sand is removed and just direct chlorination. And essentially the ground itself, the aquifer, the sand and the
Quality
aquifer,
is just better.
yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to more water treatment. This one is an interesting project. This is a picture of the new ozonation equipment at a Cater treatment plant. And ozone is O3 versus O2, the oxygen that we breathe. And so here at the Cater Water Treatment Plant treats the water for both Santa Barbara, Montecito, and Carpinteria Valley water districts. By installing this ozonation facility at the plant, the project will help the agencies, as well as ourselves, comply with the disinfection byproducts rule that have been promulgated recently by our regulatory agencies, which lowers the allowable level of disinfection products in water, namely the products from chlorination. The plant is in its final stages of testing, and operational startup is in August. So now I'll go on to what's in design. Currently, we have about 30 projects that are in design with an estimated value of over $82 million. 3 are featured today. This one is a Safe Routes to School project. It's a grant-funded project. Here is a schematic of the intersection of Cacique Street and Salinas and Cacique. And what we're doing here is realigning an offset within Salinas. However, by doing so, we're also providing better visibility for pedestrians at this location, as well as street lighting and also the rapid flashing beacons that you should be familiar with on Cabrillo Boulevard and also Milpas. New neighborhood sidewalk is also included, and some improvements near Salinas and Clifton are included. And the primary purpose of this is to simply make it easier for neighborhood children, as well as the rest of the community, to go to and from school.
Question, Madam Mayor? Mr. Kelly, can I ask a futile question? I'm not sure. How is that ever built so incorrectly? I mean, I know you would never do that, but I'm just wondering, it's so obvious walking through there, driving through there, like why wouldn't the curbs match up?
Well, this is an old city. This is on the edge of the original subdivision of the city. And as such is that as the city has grown and the different areas have annexed little incongruities of the alignment of streets have occurred. And the standard of care of what was okay back in 1930 is different than what's okay now, is my best explanation.
Thanks.
That was Route 1. That came down Coast Village Road, Old Coast Highway, jogged over, and then went across Cacique, across the bridge that's out now. So that must have been a very interesting corner at some point.
There was some interesting jogs along old Route 1
Yeah.
through town.
Yeah, and that bridge, as I understand, went out when they built the freeway. The big trucks were going over it and wrecked our beautiful Cacique Bridge.
I've heard several stories. Dave Johnson gave me one, the prior Public Works Director, is that it was one of the big floods in town. And I'm estimating it was in '84, but could be a combination of all the above.
Well, I'll retract my story if Caltrans is really good to us.
Oh.
Thank you.
Well, that one can work too. It's probably a little bit of everything in there. Here's another project, and here is, again, part of our unseen infrastructure, the sewers underground, and here we have the rehabilitation of some sewer lines. Here is a location map of where we are doing the repairs, and Public Works staff is researching new trenchless pipeline rehabilitation methods to repair our sewer. And we're experimenting with new methods for future sewer maintenance to optimize and reduce the number of spot repairs that we may have to do dig-ups. In addition to this, we're also using closed-circuit television, CCTV technology, to record pipe condition and prioritize pipes for construction work. And these methods will be used for our next rehabilitation project next fiscal year. Again, there's some significant infrastructure going on in town at the El Stella Treatment Plant and our Water Resources Division. And here's a picture on the left of the old, what we call the tertiary filtration plant. And what the tertiary treatment plant is to take the processed effluent from the sewage plant, filter it further for our reclaimed water system, which is pumped throughout the city. The terminus is pretty much at our golf course. And we use that for irrigation throughout the town at our parks and other locations as a water conservation strategy, much in the same way of the wells provide water. By irrigating, we don't need water. So it's all part of a broad program and strategy that the city has implemented over the years. And here is an outline of the El Stella treatment plant. Here's the Vercal building. Here's the Garden Street extension, and here's Cabrillo. And here are the primary and secondary plants. And the building that we're talking about is in this location, and it will be demolished, and a new technology is planned to be used, where we'll use a filter complex of microfiltration and ultrafiltration. Very close to reverse osmosis, but not. But it's going to, but it will provide a much higher quality product and more reliable product that we can use for our recycled water, and to address the various operation and maintenance issues that we have with the existing building. And construction is scheduled to start in spring of 2014. So here is a summary of that follows the information in attachment 2 of the Council Agenda Report. And in that attachment, it lists all the capital projects that we have and all the individual funds that come from, including how much of those individual funds were grant funded. From this pie chart, the airport was a biggie. And then also we have all the other funds, waterfront, wastewater, water, streets, creeks. And also there's a significant amount of grant funds here. General fund is much less than 1%. And that just reflects the economic conditions we've had over the years, and there's the time lag of what can be funded and what can be constructed. And this chart shows the trend of how much capital work that we have completed. Historically, going back to the 90s, can show that the capital improvements have been a major contributor to construction and all the jobs, et cetera, that go with that for the South Coast. This year was a record year, $84 million. Much of that, 56 or so, was for the airport. Next year, again, will be a record year, will be a large year, rather. And it will include the completion of the Cater Advanced Treatment Plant process, or TAGA well, several wastewater fund projects, and then Creek's Mission Creek Passage, the run-of-the-mill water, sewer, roadway, infrastructure maintenance, as well as 2 bridges, which are currently under construction, namely the Punta Gorda Bridge on Sycamore Creek and the Chapala Bridge at Mission Creek. So finally, we have a video. This is the video. It's, if you want, it's 6.5 minutes long. It is the video that we had that has been on Inside Santa Barbara for some time. So you may have already seen it. If you
I
want,
know we have a
can play
question,
it.
Mr. White. Did you want to?
2 more questions, Madam Mayor, on the material we've had so far. Number one, what you just mentioned, the Chapala-Yananali Bridge, it put the dollar amount at $1.4 million, which I don't know whether that's the increment of work. It certainly doesn't ring as the number of what the total cost of the project is. And it just looks like maybe that's just a misprint. But
Yeah, it's significantly more than that.
yeah. So you can maybe just get us that number afterwards. And the other question I have is, I didn't see any mention of the cogen plant, and maybe that got finished before this time frame. But it feels more recent than that.
Yes, indeed. That was completed. That's an example of this being a snapshot and not all of the work that we've done. That was done under a unique arrangement and was not a public works contract. That was a separate arrangement. So it doesn't really show up on this this type of reporting. So there are some unique creative projects in the same way that the solar that went over the facilities yard several years ago. So there's some unique things that are just a little bit different.
Well, I think that would be an important one to highlight for the obvious reasons of, not for the reasons of it being a green project, it being an economical project of economy, and also an ingredient that, so I'd appreciate either an email coming back to council on that, or even a note, a little mention, because I think the public would be interested as well. And as part of that, to have a mention of, is the facility running, and if so, is it how is it doing? How much electricity is it producing, and so forth and so on. I think that not only would we be interested, but I think that our constituents would be interested as well.
Right. I think that's probably a good idea to pay more attention than just the public works contracts, maybe some of the other important things.
Yep, Mr. House.
Thank you once again, Mr. Kelly, for these amazing reports. And it's the kind of thing that members of our community will, just it's hard to be able to appreciate the amount of work that's been done and the amount of money that we've been putting into, maintaining the community and keeping things good and using the newer technologies. So the 2 things that perhaps you can provide for us as council members later, but at some point it would be good for people to know. You mentioned when you had the pie chart up there that it indicated the kinds of funding sources, and that's by our fund, and then we have the grants piece up there. So $19 million, right, from grants that were achieved by our staff, getting the grants put together, well written, on time, seeking out opportunities, and magnifying the value of our local funding. So I just, on behalf of our constituents, I want to thank you and your team and all those in Public Works for doing this kind of, you know, you'd say it's just all in a day's work maybe, but I don't know that it is. I mean, people have to take initiative to find these things and be able to be certain that they coordinate all the efforts of the different parties to get them in the right way and then to achieve them, to have them written that well. So thank you very much. Really, really dearly appreciated.
I think as far as grants go, the Creeks Division is very effective in getting grants, especially very high percentage grants, especially, for example, the Mission Passage. And then also, interestingly enough, is that our water resources and waterfront folks, they get loans for a lot of improvements, which are not grants, but they certainly leverage over time improvements. And all the departments are great at that.
Right, and I know you've been working on making sure we get really favorable rates on that kind of thing as well, so finance must be involved there too. There's another aspect of this, and that is that jobs are created when we do this kind of work in the community. And I don't know that I've ever really seen in any of the reports an appreciation, if you will, of the high-quality, well-paid jobs. You know, these are highly skilled workers after all, and even the people that are in the ditch, they're having to be really, you know, qualified and be really capable of doing this in a safe way, and, you know, every aspect. I would really like to see a report at some point of what jobs are generated from our work here in the community. It's the city employees, of course, which we know about, but then the question is, what about the contractors and the subcontractors and all? It's a critical part of what's happening here. We're improving the community, maintaining it, but we're also providing jobs for people that really maintains that circle of funding in, you know, for all the other, you know, benefits in our community, the businesses and the rest. Do you have that kind of information? Is it accessible to us, or would it be possible for us to get some information like that? Yes,
Over time, Madam Mayor and Council, I've accumulated that kind of information and from various different sources, and can share it with the city administrator and council.
I think that'd just really be great. Again, thank you so much. Thanks for including the this particular chart up here for us today. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. Now, I've seen this video. We can watch it or not, or like it's okay? We have it. Go right ahead.
It's hard to think of a daily activity that doesn't involve a city street. From driving our cars to the grocery store, riding our bikes for pleasure, to taking public transportation to work and crossing our streets to school. So maintaining our roads will always be a top priority. In Santa Barbara, the Pavement Maintenance Program works to preserve our local roadways.
Our street system is one of the largest infrastructure systems that the city manages and operates. And the street system, as you probably know, has been built up over years and years and years. So the pavement management system is really geared to try and assess and project what the condition of the road is both today and its rate of deterioration, so that we can plan for improvements to maintain the quality of the roads.
The City of Santa Barbara maintains 235 miles of roadways. The majority of our roads are made up of asphalt pavement, which deteriorates over time due to exposure to UV rays, rain, and general wear and tear.
We have a small percentage of concrete streets, but primarily it's asphalt concrete pavement, which is considered a flexible pavement. However, asphalt pavement deteriorates over time and gets brittle and oxidizes and gets harder and is susceptible to more cracking. And so the longer that the pavement is untreated, the more brittle and the more maintenance that it would require.
The street really has this underlying base that carries the weight and is really the support foundation for the road. And then the paved surface that is visible is protecting that base. And once the support for that base fails, that's when the road fails completely.
To address road deterioration, the city has developed a zone system to schedule yearly capital road projects in a methodical and cost-effective manner.
There are 6 pavement maintenance zones in the city, and so the idea is to do a pavement maintenance zone a year and to come back every 6 years into pavement maintenance zones.
Not only does the zone system offer an organized strategy to perform road improvements, it also gives the public an idea when street projects near them will be taking place.
We try to communicate effectively with the property owners who are also impacted. There's construction going on in their front yard. And so we ask for their tolerance while that's going on by explaining this is what the purpose is and what our expectation is in terms of continuing good quality roadway that you really want to be able to have.
Every other year, the city surveys 1/3 of all city streets and rates them according to their condition.
We look for indicators of what's happening with the pavement surface, whether we can identify cracking and potholes and other visible signs of deterioration. And we use that information along with our knowledge of how the road was constructed to give it a rating.
Based on the pavement ratings, along with the traffic volumes and available funds, Public Works staff selects the highest priority streets to receive treatment.
There was a time not too long ago, about a decade ago, where we were able to treat every road in a zone. With declining revenues and increased needs, we've had to prioritize where the money is being spent. And so the bulk of the money that is being spent now is on collector and arterial roads, which are the main roads within our city. It's important to keep those up as they are the major traffic routes for all modes of transportation, including buses and cyclists, as well as vehicular travel.
We know that the more that the community is able to have those roadways repaired in an ongoing, appropriate timeline, then the less degradation to the roads over time and the less costly that repair will be. So our passengers and our drivers are relying on a comfortable, smooth ride with a safe landing.
There are a number of treatments used to improve our streets. One of the easiest and least expensive methods is using a crack seal treatment, which prevents water from intruding into the base and accelerating deterioration. Slurry seal is one of the most used treatments because it is a cost-effective way to give the road a fresh surface coating. More expensive treatments involve repair and rehabilitation, including grind and overlay, where asphalt is completely removed from the street and then replaced with new asphalt.
Once you reach the point where deterioration of the roadway has really hit a very poor or failed condition, you have to rebuild the road. And that's 10 times often more expensive than the earlier slurry seal cost we were talking about.
The cost of pavement maintenance adds up quickly. Treatments range anywhere from 50 cents to $10 per square foot and is funded through several different revenue streams.
We have gas tax monies that come from the state. We have what's called Measure A monies that come from the sales tax approved by the countywide voters a couple of years ago. And we also have some other special funds that feed into and are restricted for use with the street system as well.
Recently, limited funding has made it difficult to keep up with all the necessary road repairs, causing our overall pavement condition index, or PCI, to fall to an at-risk level. The city estimates $6.7 million a year is necessary to maintain all of our local roads at the current PCI of 63. For the past 5 years, only $2.3 million has been budgeted.
Pavement materials have increased significantly over the last 5 to 7 years with increased oil prices. And so it has been challenging to keep up with the increased costs. Also, pavements have been deteriorating at a faster rate than the funding sources have been provided. And so the combination of the two factors means that we are losing ground on our pavement conditions.
Santa Barbara isn't the only area whose streets are feeling the negative effects of budget constraints. In fact, the condition of California's streets as a whole has declined steadily since 2008.
The money is coming in to maintain our road surface and condition of our streets is only 1/3 of what's necessary. So over the state, there's an $82 billion shortfall over the next 10 years.
In California, gas tax is the largest funding source for road maintenance, but it is also a declining revenue source due to more fuel-efficient vehicles and the declining economy. And since gas taxes are not indexed for inflation, the buying power of the tax revenues has been on the decline for decades.
People are aware that when you pay at the pump, part of that is actually a flat fee. That's a gas tax. So unlike sales tax, that doesn't increase when gas prices increase. That's a lump sum. Back in the day, say 15, 20 years ago, that was a third of what you would pay for a tank, whereas now it's much more like a tenth.
So it's a pay now or pay later scenario where if we don't put an appropriate amount of investment into our road structure now, then the roads will further deteriorate, causing more costly methods of repair or rehabilitation.
In addition to the large capital treatment projects, the city also relies on street maintenance crews to manage more regular road repairs.
Once you get a pothole, you'll always have a pothole until you're able to really go in and essentially reconstruct that area of roadway. So it becomes an ongoing work responsibility for street maintenance crews to go in and do pothole repair.
Keeping up with regular street maintenance, like pothole repair, is important for all modes of transportation.
It's funny because bicycles make the least impact possible on the road condition, but cyclists are also perhaps the most vulnerable to bad roadway conditions.
Without well-maintained roads, our shocks on our buses are in need of constant repair, the comfort level of the passenger, but in particular the repair cost to the vehicles. And so we also thank Public Works for taking good care of the roads, and we rely on that happening.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Any other questions? Mr. Hotchkiss.
Just a quick question. Did you say slurry seal lasts about 6 years as a repair means?
Well, it depends, Madam Mayor and Council Member, is that it depends on the original condition of the street.
Yeah.
Some slurries can last much longer, and some less. It's just very site dependent.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.